Hi everyone. In today's video, we're gonna look at how to add a sudo user to access your SSH instead of your root. So, um, this is this is under the basic server protection, additional basic server protection within this free course. So, the idea is that we will disable the root user to access as you can see here, yes, this one. So the idea behind this is that to protect your server, your SSH server, we will not use the root to access your SSH, and instead we will use a different user, which is a sudo user, to log into your SSH so that um, a hacker, just in case they have hacked into your server, they have guessed your password, at least they don't know what your user is, because I've prepared a scenario here. So if if you haven't noticed, when you buy a server from any provider, you will either, probably most of the time, you will be provided with a credential, with a root credential, which is by default a root word, ROOT, and you don't have, as an administrator, um, this server works, or any operating system works, you are not able, I'm not sure, but to my knowledge, you are not able to change this user to any user you want to be. And you can only change your password. So, so the purpose of this, the purpose why we need to add a sudo user is that to protect our server, as mentioned earlier, we want to disable the SSH root login to have another layer of protection, because the hacker may need to guess the default username, which is the root, to access your server. So in case they have guess your password, at least they will need to guess your username as well. So if they expect that you are using your root credentials, then they will not be able to access your server, of course, because you're using a different user. So that's the point of using a sudo user. And another thing is, um, it is for your own mistake protection. So when you're using a root user, when you're running a command from your SSH, so yeah, you will be protecting your own command mistakes when you're using a sudo user. So instead of using your root user, which is a very powerful user, it will accept most of the critical commands. So what if you made a mistake? What if your commands is might break, is a mistake, and might break your server? It will not be, it will be irreversible. So that's the point of using a sudo user. So let's get started with the tutorial. So wait a bit. So I have prepared a few notes here so that I don't and then make sure guys when you just in case you want to um I will be I will add all of these commands in my in the link below to my blog, and I will also be updating it because some of the commands in the past are not working. So I've done this one time in my server, and there's my server my server broke because of that of the wrong command, or maybe it's not wrong, maybe it's just an old command that don't work anymore in the present um, operating system. So let's first of course you have to log into your terminal. So I'm using Bitwise SSH. So it's the most easiest SSH client that I know. But in case guys you know something easier than Bitwise, please let me know in the comments, and I will look at um, I will look into it. And also, if you're not familiar with Bitwise, you just go to my I believe I have mentioned this here in my free course playlist. Check it out. I think I have mentioned it in this um, tutorial here. Install cPanel on CentOS 7. So check it out there. So let's get started. So this log into your terminal or your server via SSH. So now I am running as root. So maybe so as you can see here. So before we do this via terminal, probably um I will show you first how you can add a sudo user via WHM. So let's log into our WHM, and here paste this to your browser, the link, and let's search wheel wheel group. So the sudo users or the sudo user group is called wheel group users. Wheel in in the server. I'm not sure why it's being called as wheel, but it's just the same. So these are users. When you add a user into this group, um, they will have a permission to run root user limited user privilege. I mean limited root user privileges. So as you can see here, if it doesn't show any users here, it means that you don't have a user within the wheel group or within the sudoers. Okay, so we want to add a user. These are probably service users from the services, but I do have a user under as a cPanel user here. This is Mawix. So if you check on the list of accounts, I have a user here and the username is Mawix. So this is the, wait, um, so that will be the one that we want to add. So, and by the way, guys, just to make sure that you don't get confused, if you want to add a user, just add a user from the cPanel account. Okay, this one. So just add them and don't and then just disregard the other ones here because these probably are users from different um, services, the plugins, cPanel services. These are users for those um, services. So just ignore them and then just use the users here, or else the user that you will be creating under the OS or your server OS, meaning the CentOS if you're using Ubuntu, which might not be under or may not be a user as a cPanel user. It is quite confusing, but when you when you manage a server later on, you will realize and you will what do you call this? You will normally or you will unconsciously understand everything that is going on. I'm still not an expert though. I still have a lot of things that I don't know when managing a server, I'm just focused on um what things that I needed to secure my server, to manage and to run it. So that's the important thing. You don't really need to learn how everything works. You just need to know what things that you should know to make your server up and running. So that's what the course is all about, what the section or the module of this course is all about, to teach you how to manage a server to run your websites later on. So that's the point, which which not which I don't see or I don't know anyone um, is teaching people on YouTube. That's why I am here. So let's add my Mowix user. So you add this to the group. So as you can see, it shows here. So this is now in the wheel group. So how do you know that this is how you see or you validate that a user is under the wheel group. So how do you know via SSH? So you can what you can do is to check the privileges. This is the command. Probably let's clear things out first. So the command to check any user within their privileges, if they are under the wheel group, is to ID them. So this is how you check their privileges. So ID, just probably just think about it as IDing them, to ID them. So ID the user. Okay, so this is how you check it out. So as you can see, groups. So it will show here that they are under the wheel group and the Mawix user, which means that I don't know. As long as there's a wheel group, as long as there's a wheel here, so it means that they are not under the I mean they are under the wheel, so they can run sudo commands. So if you to validate that, if you just check it out here, there's a wheel here, right? So if we remove this user from the wheel, so let's go back to so there's no wheel user anymore. So if you ID Mawix again, so as you can see, there's no wheel anymore. So that's how you can do that. So um, so let's do that. Let's add a user into the wheel group via SSH. So to do that, I do have a command here. So as you can see, add user. So let's use another operating system user, not a cPanel user. So we want to create another user at the same time, um, add them in the wheel group. Okay, so we want to add a user first, a user in the operating system in the CentOS computer that we have, because this is a CentOS which I have installed a cPanel in, but you can create a user within your operating system, not in cPanel alone. So um, I'm hoping it's not that confusing. You can create a cPanel user, and you can also create a user within your operating system. It's just like something like it's just some a user in a operating system is just like a user in your what do you call this? In your excuse me, in your um in your Windows operating system. Anyways, I believe you got that already. But yeah, we will be adding a new user. Let me check here. Adding a new user, and the username is root user. Okay, so first we need to add. So it means that this user is now created, has now been created. So as you can see, it's the same with Mawix. So they have here. So let's check out in the cPanel if it shows here. No. So as you can see, it doesn't show in the cPanel because we have not created it here. So you cannot create it via SSH. I believe there's a way though to create a cPanel user via SSH. Maybe I'll share it with you in a different video. If you want to learn about that, just let me know in the comments. So let's continue on. So as as mentioned before, whenever I create a user, if there's a new server that I manage, I always create or change the password. So we don't yet have a password for that user, so we want to create a new password for that. So if you want to change the password of your root, you only need to run this and make sure you're running as the root. So, or whatever user you are running with, or you are logged in with, if you want to change their password, that user's password, you only need to run this. But if you have the privileges, or if you have the privilege maybe as a root administrator or a sudo user, you want to change a password for a certain user, then the command is password, passwd, and then the username. So it will prompt for you to create a password for that user. So I've already typed in my password. So you just need to retype it. So as you can see, so now I already have set up my password for the user. So the next step is to add the user, to run this command to add this user into the wheel group. So this is the command. I'm not sure how this what's the meaning of this. You probably can just search, or maybe we can just search it later on if you want me to um, explain to you. Maybe I'll create a video for all of the tutorials that we have uploaded here within the course. If you want to learn more about all the commands, how they works, let me know. I will create another separate video about that, explaining things. Anyway, so this is the command for adding this user into the wheel group. So this is the group. You can add a different group, but since we want a user to be a sudo user, a sudoer, so we want to add it in the wheel group. So let's just copy this and then add it here in the command line. So now let's go here to the WHM in the wheel group user and just refresh this. So as you can see, when we added the user to the wheel group, it now shows here, but it's not in the cPanel. It's only here, right? So if you want to add Mawix, you can also add within the same, I mean, with the same command. So as you can see, awesome, right? So now we want to ID the root user. So as you can see, it is now in the wheel group. So if you want to ID as well Mawix, which we have removed earlier, so as you can see, it's now also in the wheel group. So the next one, if we want to remove a user, this is the command that I found. So we want to remove Mawix from the wheel. So the command is to use gpassw. I don't know why it's called that way, but as you can see, removing user Mawix from wheel group. So let's check it out if it has been removed. So yes, it has been removed. So let's ID Mawix, ID the user. So as you can see, it's not anymore. It's not showing any wheel group anymore. Let's clear this out. So if you want to delete a user, instead of removing only within a certain group, And you can do this or use this command to delete along with its directory or home directory. I believe it's home directory. Oops. Yes. So that's the command there. So the next thing we want to do to manage so now we have this so the scenario is that we already have a sudo user as we have wanted. Let me check. So here, so the next thing is that, and I've already showed you as well how to remove a user from any group or the real group. So the next thing is I will show you how you can switch this switch to the user. So let's go on switch the user. So this is the command to switch to the user. So this is the command and then the username. So let's go. As you can see here, I'm the root, right? So if I run this command, this is the username. If you enter this, now I am the root user. So the next is if I want to switch to the root user, then I just remove the user. The same command but without the username. And it will ask the password of the I believe the root. So as you can see, it will ask the password of the root. So that's the point when you have a sudo user or a sudoer or a real user. Um, in a later video, we will disable SSH root login so that we will only be able to log in as the sudo user. And then based on the previous commands that I've shown you how to switch over to the root, as you can see. So the idea is that um, we will not we will disable the login as the root in our SSH, and instead we will only log in as the root user. So when you're logging as the root user, or I mean the sudoer, this is the root user, the sudoer, the root user that I'm that I'm talking about, that I'm referring into um is the sudoer. So the point of using it is to prevent anyone in case someone has guessed your root password, they will still not be able to log in because we have disabled the root login access in our SSH. They will to gain access as a hacker, they will need to guess as well our username, our root username. So it is very important to create another user via SSH instead via cPanel or um yeah here, because probably they have a way to know what the user of your cPanel, if ever, which is very difficult. And at least here, it's much more very difficult to know what the username of your sudo were. So, so the scenario is that, let's say, for example, if we already have disabled the root user login, and when we log into our cPanel, what do you call this? We log into our I mean, our SSH terminal. It will show something like this. Now we have logged in as the root user instead of the as the sudoer instead of the root user. So what you want to do, if you want to log in, if you want to log in, if you want to run root privilege root privileges commands, that's why you need to. This is where if you are familiar with sudo commands, there's a sudo command. If you search something, let's say if you want to search a command, you don't know how to do it, um, command to delete everything in your operating system. So some of the commands that you will see or might show in certain blogs, there is a sudo something like that. If you're familiar with that, that's the reason why there's a sudo, because the user that they are using is a sudoer or a user in the wheel group. S- Because most of the webmasters probably are practicing managing their server as using a sudo user or a user in the wheel group. So if you haven't noticed, it is a good practice when you're managing your server to use sudo user, because most of them as well are using the same practice. Because if you're using only your root, and as mentioned earlier, um, the point of using a sudo, the obvious reason is to secure your server from your own mistake as well, from running critical commands that might break your server, and it's irreversible most of the time. So instead of just renaming something, you've deleted something. It is irreversible. I'm not sure how the server works, everything works. Maybe you can restore something or so, but as a newbie, someone like me, um, it's still good to prevent something from happening. Okay, so aside from this, to protect your server from hackers that have probably guessed your password, um, at least if you use another username and have disabled your root user access to SSH, and you've created another user as a sudo user to access your SSH, they will still need to guess your username aside from your password. So that's the point of that. And yeah, I guess that's it. So that's how you can add a sudo user in your server. So in the next in the other tutorials, we will discuss how to um, probably disable your SSH, SSH root login, and then many other tutorials within the basic server protection module. So we now have this added here. So yeah, so that's how you can manage as well. Um, if you have any questions, please ask me in the comments, or you can go to my let me check here. Go to community.mawix.com. So this is the website where I have a forum, support forum for the community, the webmasters community. I am planning to create a membership deal later on within this website. You will have access to a lot of great things, co-working service probably um, for webmasters, for peeps that are working on, and hope to see you there while it's still free. Um, if you want to send a screenshot, if you want a free support from me, I I suggest you post a thread here instead in the comments. I suggest here, especially if you need support, send out send the any screen error screenshot, and yeah, see you in the next video.